Hi, I'm Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome to another episode of the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And once again, we have a seminary audience here for our special seminary series. That's not easy to say. Special seminary series by the seashore. And this one is a sponsorship, not by a seminary girl, as it happens. This is sponsored by Ari in honor of my wife, Karen, upon her birthday, Shabbos Parshas Chayesar. What could be more beautiful to give as a gift to that special person in your life than a sponsorship of the Rabbi Orlofsky Show? Because you know that in their schus, this shir is going out to thousands and thousands of people who are hanging on this show. And I can't tell you how many emails I get from couples who watch the show together. And somebody sent me a picture of their Meleva Malka, where there's the laptop with my podcast, and they're sitting around the table eating their Meleva Malka, watching the podcast on Motzi Shabbos. It's heartwarming. Anyway, I'm finishing the dedication. Thank you for all the incredible devotion and love for our family and our children. Thank you for always supporting and encouraging our spiritual and personal growth and well-being. Mamish, isn't that the theme of the podcast? And may Hashem help you and all of Klal Yisrael grow closer to Him for many more happy and healthy years. Ari and Karen, I can only echo those sentiments. I could not have said it better myself. That what else could you ask for? A life of meaning, beauty, surrounded by children and grandchildren. Beautiful. Where your focus is on your ruchnius, your focus is on building a Torah home. What a beautiful, beautiful thing. And we started speaking last week about the issue of going to seminary. If you didn't see last week's podcast, stop this, go back, listen to last week's podcast, and then come back, just so you have the context, because there's a continuation. I've never really done this before. I've talked about different aspects of it, but I'm mamish going through this kaseda because I think this is so important. I got a letter from Beis Yaakov Sr., who's trying to decide, how do I pick a seminary? And I said, the first thing you have to do is ask yourself, why do you want to learn in a seminary in Israel? I had a niece. She had one particular seminary that she wanted to go to for whatever reasons, whatever her cheshbonos were. She didn't have a backup seminary. That was the only seminary she wanted to go to. And when she didn't get in, she said, I'm not going. And she went to a very well-established seminary someplace in the United States. And she said, this was an eye-opening experience for me, because I had teachers who were Holocaust survivors. When I went to high school, I had, for the most part, young ladies who were teaching. Being able to teach in a seminary from women is a very challenging thing, because one principal said to me, I just know, I sit down with my staff and say, okay, who's leaving because they're pregnant? I know you're going to be here for a couple of months, then you take off, for maternity leave, and I got to find a substitute. And I've had that with my own kids. They start with a mechanechet, they start with a teacher, and then they leave, maternity leave, and they get somebody else. And sometimes the person they get in is nowhere as good as the first teacher. And sometimes they're much better than the first teacher. And we really try to encourage the teacher to take more time with her children, that she really needs it. Because she was, somebody once observed, half the world's population is below average. And that applies to teachers too. I have a whole rant about teachers, but that's not really what we're talking about now. But he says, we had a test on Chumash and Rashi in the parsha. Okay, I'll admit, I didn't apply myself as well as I should have. And the teacher looks at us and says, how could you not know Chumash and Rashi? How would we have gotten through Auschwitz without Chumash and Rashi? And she's like, oh, man. You're going to pull the Auschwitz card. Oh, my gosh, What it does mean is that with age, there's a certain experience that you get. And you have to take that into account. Who's teaching in the schools, and what is it they're coming to bring? Now, don't get me wrong. My father, Over Shalom, always used to say that a person who's a talented teacher, it doesn't matter how much they know, because they could be one chapter ahead of the class, but if they really know how to give it over, that's tremendous. And on the other hand, you could have somebody who's an expert in a particular field, and they're not great teachers. They don't give it across. I want to say more than this, just for a moment. This is one of the hardest questions when Bali Tshuva come to me, and they say, how do I pick a Rebbe? Because if I'm going to pick a Rebbe, and I'm going to be sincere, I'm going to follow that person, depending on who I choose, make a big difference. You understand, if you choose Beis Hillel or Beis Shammai, there's an easy example. You know that you're going to be having a completely different experience. If you're going to be a Chazan Isha, or somebody who's not a Chazan Isha, you're going to take a Brisker or someone who's not a Brisker, it's a whole different thing. If you're going to choose Breslov, that's a whole different thing than Brisk. This Breslov guy was sitting on the plane next to a Brisker, and the Breslov guy goes, nah. And the Brisker goes, shh. And the Breslover goes, nah, nach. And the Brisker goes, shh. And he goes, nah, Nachman. And he goes, shh. And he goes, nah, Nachman, meuman. The Brisker goes, shma. Because Briskers go very slowly. That's the idea. But it's obviously a completely different approach. Completely different approach. So they say, how do I choose a Rebbe? I said, the Chazal give us a yardstick. It says, if your Rebbe is like a malach, then you're like a person. But if your Rebbe is like a person, then you're like an animal. What does that mean? It means my Rebbe has to be on a higher level than me. And if my Rebbe is just a regular guy, Rabbi Bob, hey Bob, how's it going? Oh, great. How's it going by you, Sylvia? Oh, yeah, terrific. Oh, that's nice, I was going to come by the house tomorrow. Maybe we'll have a cup of coffee. Okay, that sounds great. Looking forward to see you. Give my love to Cynthia. Okay, bye. Okay, that's, I said, you want a Rebbe? It's got to be somebody that you want to tell stories to your children about. Now think about that. Oh, I tell stories to my children about Rav Henoch Leibowitz. I tell stories to my children about Rav Tzvi Kushelevsky. I tell stories to my children about Rav Moshe Shapiro. I tell stories to my children about the times that I had schus to go to Rav Chaim Kanievsky or to Rav Yoshev. These were. I knew I was in the presence of somebody who was a higher sug human being. And if you don't have access to those kind of people, then you have to have a Rebbe whose Rebbe is one of those people. That I'm understanding that there's something more. So, what can I tell you? Sometimes we have to definitely try to decide what the staff is of the institution I'm going to. Who's running it? What are the principles that they're running it on? What are the standards that they're maintaining? What are they trying to accomplish? So I wrote a column. I used to write chinuch columns in the Hamadiyah. And every now and then I would write a column, mostly to annoy my wife. Now, I have to tell you, I'm married 37 years. And a lot of the things that I've done have definitely been to annoy my wife. I don't know what traumatic experience she had as she was a child. But when we were first married, at some point when, I was getting ready for bed, I would go, bedtime, and I'd turn off the light. She would get so upset. it took about 30 years before I couldn't get a reaction from her anymore. And then, and I would do it night after night, bedtime. And she's like, why do you do that? Why do you? It doesn't bother her anymore now. She has a Shabbos light. But, but I don't know what it was. We have certain things inside of us that definitely. So I used to write certain columns. So I wrote a column like this about girls' education. And I said, we send girls to high school, to seminary, and we pump them through with lumdis, a lot of learning. I said, how many Rambans do you need to bake a kugel? How many, Gurayes do you have to learn in order to change a diaper? Are we really preparing these girls for their life as a firm person? Anyway, I wrote this partly to annoy my wife, and also because I would get these angry letters, and then I could get another column responding to the letters. So that was it was also a little technique that I had. Anyway, I got a flood of mail. Everyone saying, Rabbi Orlofsky is right. No, I have to tell you the truth. My heart wasn't in it. And suddenly I was invested in this column. So, and I really didn't get it. I got one negative letter from the head of a Beis Yaakov high school who said, if parents don't respect the fact that the girls have to come to school and have to learn, so then it's not covered to the teachers. Mind you, he wasn't arguing that what we teach they need to learn. They're just saying that if the girls don't come and participate, then it's a chisaron in the covet of the staff. That to me is not that's not really a really strong argument when you think about it, You got to come to school and you have to really study because otherwise, it's going to hurt our feelings. Now, that's true. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Certainly me. Everyone knows how careful I am to have concern for everybody. Never let a hurtful word leave my lips. But anyway, then I went to speak in a girls' high school. And this woman teacher started fighting with me. And she said like this, she goes, okay, you don't want the girls to learn so much. What do you want them to do? What should they do? Go shopping? Read novels? Hang out with their friends? What do you want a girl to do if she's not going to be learning, So I said, look, I tell you the truth. My heart wasn't really in the column. And I basically wrote it, because I thought I would get general outrage. And she said, why did you think that? Listen. I hate telling over this story because it just hurts so much. She says, why do you think that? Says, people know that in Shidduchim, if a girl is smart, it's a chisaron. It's a negative. Guys want cheerleaders, dumb and pretty. So I said to her, no, I'm talking about serious boys and learning. And they said, right, serious boys and learning want girls who are dumb and pretty. And I said, it can't be. It can't be. So I did a little research on my own. Oh my goodness. I'm talking about B'nai Yeshiva. Guys, I want to sit and learn in Kollel. L'dugma. The issue of the shidduch crisis, we all know about the shidduch crisis, what a difficult situation it is. I've spoken about this in the past. I'll speak about it again. But one of the problems is that there's an age gap. And Kenai Nahara, the Jewish population, keeps growing. So if you take the amount of boys and girls in 9th grade, it's equal. And in 10th grade, and in 11th grade, and in 12th grade. But is a pyramid, or as we say in Hebrew, pyramida. And so each year there's more. So if you only have this many boys who are 23 who are going to marry this many girls who are 19, then you're going to have a problem. And they said that's why by the Hasidic community they don't have this problem because they all marry the same age. So I brought this up at a bunch of yeshiva guys at my Shabbos table, and I brought it up because anytime something's annoying me, I like to bring it up at the Shabbos table and talk about it. Or not only if it's annoying me, but if it's something that interests me or that I have absolutely no filters. you know. Somebody said to me once ago, I feel like you stop and think, should I say this or not? And regardless of what you conclude, you say it anyway. And that is true. I told this story. I one time had the Shana Bet girls in the seminary I was teaching at my house. And as I was talking like I always do, every now and then my wife would say, I don't think you should say that, Rabbi Orlofsky. I don't think you mean that, Rabbi Orlofsky. I don't think that's appropriate, Rabbi Orlofsky. And I was like, okay, you know. Anyway, the next day in class, I started to say something, and one of the girls said, if your wife was here, she wouldn't let you say that. I said, you're right, but she's not. So I don't have too many filters, you know. So I have these yeshiva boys at my table, and I said, you know, maybe it would be a good thing, you know, if boys married girls their own age. And they made this whole mivtza, you know, and this guy married an older girl from Baltimore. And there was some fund that gave you money if you married a girl who was your age or older. And also Baltimore would give you a bonus. He goes, I made off like a bandit. It was really kedai. Everyone should marry older Baltimore girls. Anyway, I don't know if those are still true. This is just a story. So I said, so it's an idea. No, marry girls of your own age. So they all said it wouldn't work. And I said, why? He goes, because a girl your own age won't respect you as much as a girl who's younger than you. I said, are you so insecure that you think that your wife won't respect you unless she's a little girl and she's going to look up to you? So they all shook their head and said, you don't get it. You don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, there's this certain attitude. So now, let's back it up. So a girl wants to go to seminary in order to learn on a higher level for what purpose? What is it I'm trying to accomplish? What do I want to gain from a year in seminary? And a person who can't define that, then the answer is, here's how you pick your seminary. Go where your friends are going. Go someplace that has very nice facilities, good food, comfortable beds. Go someplace that has a good location so that if you want to go and eat out on Shabbos and still sleep in, you don't have a problem. And also, if you want to go out to eat, you don't have to schlep too far. And go to a place that won't expect too much of you. Oh, you've solved your problem. What are those places? I don't know that I want to say this in public on the podcast, but if you ask around, I think you'll get a certain perspective. But ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish? Do I want to have a year in Eretz Yisrael? Can you have a year in Eretz Yisrael if you're on the phone with your mommy every day? When I came, you couldn't use the phone. You had to write letters. And sometimes letters were too expensive for us. We want a budget. We used to send aerograms. So it's basically a piece of tissue paper, and you would write very small, and then you'd fold it over, and had a little adhesive on the side, and you'd mail it. And it took 2 weeks to get there, and 2 weeks for you to get an answer. And by the time you got the answer, you don't even remember what you said in the letter. And but when you would get a letter, it was like so exciting. But that was it. You didn't make any phone calls. Nobody to talk to. You had to grow up. I had to grow up. And that was one of the most beautiful things of coming to Eretz Yisrael. Coming to Eretz Yisrael was an experience for you to grow up. Where does a person have that? So, I'm going to give you an example of one of the big problems when it comes to the whole seminary experience. A couple of years ago, Rosh Chodesh Elul was August 8th. I know I was speaking in America. Yeah, in the middle of August, I'm speaking about Elul. And I said, this doesn't make any sense. The summer is when you're supposed to be doing all the Averas you do tshuva for in Elul, you know? You know, it comes out in the middle of the summer, it just ruins everything, you know? In camp, trying to have a fun time, it's color war. They blow the shofar. Whoever does tshuva gets an extra 20 points for their team. So now girls come to seminary. Your year in seminary. Let's talk straight. There is no year in seminary. It doesn't exist. Work with me. Okay? You come to Eretz Yisrael. First, they have orientation. That takes a while. Then there's the Yom Tovim. Yeah. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, breaks. Then you come back. Yeah. Then any staff member who's any worthwhile is going to America to recruit for next year already. So they're all good. So now it's Hanukkah vacation. Then it's midwinter vacation. And then we come back. Yeah. Okay. So now it's Purim and it's Pesach, and that whole time is already transitioning. And then a lot of girls go home for Pesach. And then they come back. There's a few weeks left. And you finish up and you have finals, and you have the banquet, and add up how much that actually works out to. 7 months? But it doesn't sound so good to say you were 7 months in Israel. We call it your year in Israel. There's no year in Israel. It's at best 7 months. Yeah? So I'm coming to Eretz Yisrael, and what is it I'm trying to accomplish? Do I want a place where they're going to pump me through with a tremendous amount of Torah on a very high level as an intellectual exercise? Okay. Maybe. Do I want to be in Eretz Yisrael? So I have a cell phone. I'm on the phone all the time to America. If they have email, I'm emailing all the time to America. And it's constant. It's constant. When do I break away? When do I have a chance to grow up? So, getting back to my original point. So my wife said, the Yom Tovim comes so early. Says, in her seminary that she had gone to, when the Yom Tovim come out early, they first start the seminary after the Yom Tovim. Makes tremendous sense. So you have a girl, she's come to Eretz Yisrael. She's on the plane. Yeah. I get her luggage, put on a bus. She's suddenly put into a dormitory with a bunch of other girls. Sometimes we're dealing with girls who never had to share a room in their life. And there were a bunch of other girls. There's not enough room to put your stuff. Never. Because girls are crazy, right? So we're going to put all your stuff. So they keep suitcases under their beds, and they have things over here, and they move things around, etc. and that. And always one of your roommates is a slob. She has stuff all over the place. So you say, well, you have your stuff also. He goes, mine is in a pile. And it's neat. It's organized. She's just a mess, I'm not even talking about those people who are really they make their bed every morning with hospital corners, you know what I mean? They're standing by ready for inspection. Yes, sir! But, I had a girl in seminary, and she, who we knew, and she used to say, listen, I'll come by the house, I'll do my laundry once a week and help around the house, So we were like, sure, got the washing machine and dry anyway, She'd come down and she'd help. And as the year went on, it was once every 2 weeks. It was once a month. She says, what can I tell you? You live in seminary long enough, and you take something out and you're like, it's not so bad. Girls start off, they come to seminary, and they get dressed every day, and then, and then the winter comes, and it gets really cold, and they're starting to wear these hats pulled down, sometimes gloves, they have the gloves with the fingers cut off so they can write, and extra sweaters, and all they're missing is a baby carriage filled with garbage to push down the street. like a homeless person. They stop wearing any kind of makeup. They just, just let themselves go, And it's always bad because then, family comes to visit from America and they're like, and the worst thing is they're stuck inside because, there's lockdown. There's lockdown every night. There's lockdown every night, but you have to do homework till 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's and then you're locked down. So the only way to get through is with industrial-sized boxes of cookies. And so the girls go into hibernation during the winter. And suddenly springtime comes. And they realize in a month, I have to get onto a plane and I am only entitled to one seat. So comes Purim time, you see hordes of seminary girls walking around the neighborhood trying to undo months of damage. But, so they come to Eretz Yisrael, and right away, they go through orientation, and right away, it's Rosh Hashanah. Oh my goodness, what a terrible thing to do to, I don't know if it's hundreds, I don't know if it's thousands, but it's an enormous amount of seminary girls who are all desperately making phone calls. If they have family here, okay, but they don't have any family. Hi, do you have girls for Rosh Hashanah? Yeah, we're 6, we can't split up. Okay. Well, where do you daven? In an apartment? Uh-huh. And the Ezras Nashim is upstairs? And they leave the door open? Oh, okay. Not exactly like I grew up. Because I remember going to shul with my family, and we'd all go to the Ezras Nashim, and we knew the tunes, we knew the chazanim, and we'd sing along, and now I don't know what they're saying, why they're doing it, and you only daven vasikin. What time is that, about 5? Oh, okay, yeah, that'll be fun, yeah. And how long does the daven last? Between 8 and 9 hours? Yeah, okay. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, you can only have us for one meal and no sleep. Oh, you have sleeping bags in the living room? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's 2 days like that should be no problem whatsoever. And so you have these girls, Rosh Hashanah, they just start falling apart. They're crying all over the place. They're so homesick and they want to go home. And this is not how it was when I was growing up. Does this ring a bell, anybody? And then it's sukkahs. And you ask, come for sukkah. Are you having girls for sukkahs? There's 8 of us, we can't split up. But of course, it's one of these Israeli mirpasot where there's like 2 spots inside of the sukkah for the husband and the son. And they're like right around. And all the girls are like in the covered part of the sukkah, which doesn't really feel like a sukkah. Even with the paper chains. It just doesn't have that same feeling. And everyone remembers my sukkah back at home. And my mother used to make this special soup. And it was so nice. And now I don't know what I'm doing here. Why am I here? So they used to just start it after Yontif. Stay home. Go to your shul. Stay with your parents. Have a nice Rosh Hashanah. Have a nice sukkah. And then come and start your year. What do you have to do this to people for? So that people say, well, it gives them an opportunity. An opportunity! You're first starting out. If you have arrangements, and the girls have places to go, or if you're going to provide, but come on, what kind of a Rosh Hashanah can a seminary provide when essentially it's 100 girls, a bunch of girl teachers? What are they going to do exactly? So in case you could bring like a small minion of men and stick them in the corner surrounded by mechitzas. It's not quite the same thing. It's a real problem. It's a real problem. So we've solved that problem. It used to be a big problem with Pesach. We solved that problem because everybody goes home. And no one's ever seen Pesach in Yerushalayim, in Eretz Yisrael, and it's probably one of the most moving experiences that a person can have in their life. Because not to take away from the Pesach aisle in ShopRite, which is almost always impressive. And I would argue that they have more products there than they have in all of Eretz Yisrael. More variety, all kinds of different types, wonderful hashkachas, Here, whatever you're buying, there's at least 2 people who tell you it's chazatreif. And nobody trusts anybody or trusts anything. And it's such a mess, But when Pesach comes around, even if you're in a secular neighborhood, they have to paper over all of the chametz aisles. Even the restaurants that are not catering to religious people, there's no bread. They only put in a box of matzah. They have to kasher the place. Whether it's to our standards or not is irrelevant, but it's just, you feel Pesach in the air. It's something that's so dramatic. And so all the girls go back home. Why? Because they want to be with their family for the Seder. I'm not saying that's wrong. So instead, you drag them here for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. That's what you want them to see. And if we had accommodations, let's face it, most of these shuls are bursting as they are. Do you think we suddenly have room for 1,000 seminary girls? I'm exaggerating. It's got to be thousands of seminary girls. Where are we putting them? And it's not really thought out, I think. So, do you want to be in Eretz Yisrael? And if not, there are some wonderful seminary options in America, or Canada, or England. I think that's about it. Yeah, I don't know if there is in Australia or not. I don't know if there is in South Africa. It could be. Yeah, sure. But, there are plenty of options. What's the reason to come to Eretz Yisrael? The reason to come to seminary in Eretz Yisrael is because you want to be in Eretz Yisrael. You want to have a year in Eretz Yisrael, or 7 months, whatever the case is. But you want to get that Eretz Yisrael experience. If you don't want that Eretz Yisrael experience, why is it so dusty here? Why is it so hot? Then you're right. Why should I do that? What am I doing it for? So that at the end I can turn around and say, I wrote 3 reports, and I researched Chesed using 4 Chazal and 3 Rishonim and 4 Mussar Sfarim. And I wrote a report. Why? What are you ever going to do with that report? What does anyone do with these reports? Found my wife's old notes from seminary. Notebooks full. So if you're going to become a teacher and you're going to use this as a basis for research and you want to really, I understand. But if you're a normal person, what am I going to do with all these reports? Why am I doing all these reports? I'll tell you something. I may have mentioned this in an earlier podcast, but it was a letter to the editor in the Hamodia, and it made such an impression on me. It says, this girl went to seminary, and before the Yom Narayim, we had so many shiurim. We did Pachad Yitzchak, and we did Sichus Musar, and we learned all of these insights. And my davening, Shana Yom Kippur, was the most dramatic thing. Oh, it's tremendous. Now I'm back in America, and I'm working as a secretary, and I'm going to school, and I'm looking for a shidduch. I don't have time to go to shiurim. I said, how am I going to daven? She says, I go to shul, and I see these 3 old ladies, and they start davening, and they start crying. And tears are literally dripping down onto the pages of their old machzor. And I said to myself, they probably never learned the Pachad Yitzchak. They probably never learned the Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. But there's something real about their avodas Hashem that I don't have. And I found that so profound. And it's something that speaks to me because what's the goal? What are you trying to accomplish? I'm coming for a year. So if you're like the guys I spoke to about why do you get married, and they say to me, because everyone gets married. They gave different answers. In the end, one guy said, my mother's making me. Fine, I understand. That's as good an answer as any. Everyone gets married because everyone gets married. I understand. That's a good answer. Yeah. Everybody wants to have a good marriage. But when you ask people what a good marriage is, very hard to define. Everybody wants to live a meaningful life, but you ask them what that means, very hard. Everyone wants to be a good person. Everyone wants to have good kids. Well, the devil's in the details. How do you figure out what these things are? So there are certain girls who say to me, listen, the boys want to know that you went to seminary in Eretz Yisrael. That's why I'm going to seminary in Eretz Yisrael. Some girls say to me, I tell you the truth, I just want to get away from my family for a year. They're so oppressive. So why am I going to Eretz Yisrael? Because that's where all the seminaries were. If they were in Madagascar, I'd go to Madagascar. Happens to be in Israel. What am I? What do I? So you always have 2 questions. Why am I going to seminary, and why am I going to seminary in Eretz Yisrael? So you have to define that for yourself. I used to have girls, there were certain seminaries that offer Shana Bet. And I was in a seminary where they had a Shana Bet program, and they encouraged the girls to come back for Shana Bet. When I say encourage the girls, I mean there were certain people who taught there who said, if you don't come back for Shana Bet, I don't know if you're going to be frum for the rest of your life. They'd say, if you don't come back for Shana Bet, you haven't accomplished anything. The whole first year was nothing. And girls would come speak to me, and I'd say, listen, it really depends. There are some girls who would definitely gain from Shana Bet. There are certain people who need to come back Shana Bet. And there are certain people who should not come back Shana Bet with Shem Panav Eifen. Because they accomplished whatever they needed to accomplish, and they did it in 1 year, and they're done. Why come back for another year? And the answer is because everyone's being encouraged to come back for a second year. Not necessarily for their own best interest, if you want to be perfectly frank. Because if I have a Shana Bet, that mechazeks Shana Aleph, so it's good for me. I gain from having people coming back for another year. There are other considerations. Not always what's in the best interest of the person. But I remember this guy who had a high school. It was a co-ed high school. And the guy got frum and he wanted to move out, and he convinced his parents to make him stay. And the young man was very upset. And he said to the principal, why won't you let me go? He goes, if I lose all the good kids, I won't have a high school. There's more than one community that I know where eventually everything closed down. He says, why? Because, we were like a Kiruv community, and as we'd mechazik people and they got stronger, they said, well, I don't want to live here in the middle of no place. And they'd move to a more established frum community until after a while our community became not viable. So I understand. So we're going to talk about more of the reasons for it, but a person has to ask themselves, like I say, before I choose the seminary, 2 questions. Why do I want to go to Eretz Yisrael, and why do I want to go to seminary? Now, it could be that a person says, I don't want to go to Eretz Yisrael, I want to go to a seminary, and it happens to be the best ones are in Eretz Yisrael. If not the best ones, certainly ones that suit my needs. And it could be people say, I don't really want to go to seminary, but I really want to be in Eretz Yisrael. So this is the only way to do it. I'm not going to work in a kibbutz. But those are the 2 questions you have to answer. Why should I go to seminary? Why shouldn't I just right away get a job? It's a comedian who said I joined the army when I graduated high school because the dropouts had all the jobs. So maybe I should go right out of high school, get myself a job, start shidduchim right away. Grab all the good guys while everyone else is in Israel partying. And they come back and I'm, nah. Maybe. Why? So those are the questions you have to ask. And we'll try to suggest some solutions, but why do I want to go to a seminary at all? And why a seminary in Eretz Yisrael? Those are the 2 questions. We're going to talk more about this. I got a lot to say. I'm just warming up. And so that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, please go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. Well, I never even answered Esti's questions about technology, but if you're watching this, I guess you've already answered that question for yourself. And RabbiOrlofsky.com, and you can make comments, and you can see my upcoming schedule. You can contact me directly, and if you want to sponsor a podcast, I have to tell you, there's a waiting list. It's there's a lot of people who are finding about this show and understand that to sponsor it is a tremendous chus, whether you're like Ari, who's sponsoring it in honor of his wife Karen's birthday, or whether you're someone who just wants to be mashpia, Torah in the world, and to be marbitz Torah, and to be able to give chizik to people. How many people write me and they say, I'm having so many problems in my life, and I tried watching Reila Shiram, they don't help me, but your show, it just gives me so much chizik to get through the day. Yeah. And that's why we only do it once a week, so you're going to have to listen to it like a few times, like Esti said last week. But if you want to sponsor an episode, go to RabbiOrlofsky.com/podcast, click on the sponsor an episode button. That's it for this week. I'm Rabbi Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.